Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about how long you should take to prepare for your medical coding certification exam. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay, so the time has come and now you are preparing to sit for your certification exam. How long do you study? How much time is too much? How much time is too short? Let's get into it. Okay, so it really is going to depend on which certification you're going to be sitting for. So I will be doing that in another video, like which certifications should you sit for. While you are in school, you should have an idea of which certification you want to sit for, either with the American Health Information Management Association or the American Academy of Professional Coders. This way you have a path to follow, because each association, their tests are set up uniquely, and they have their domains listed on their website, and domains being the topics that are on the exam. And so you can visit either website and see what they are going to test on for that particular certification. When you do that, at least you have an idea and a path. Now, depending on how long your medical coding program is, hopefully you are in a program that is 9, 12, or 18 months. If you are in a fast-paced, accelerated program, there's a lot. There's a lot at stake. So when it comes to the rule of thumb on how long it should take for you to prepare for your certification exam, I always say if you feel really confident, then like no more than 2 weeks. On the outside, it should be 3 months. Now, if you've gone through a long enough program, 9, 12, or 18 months, you generally are not going to need 3 months to sit for the certification exam. There's nothing that you're going to learn in 3 months that is going to change if you are going to pass or not, because of the simple fact that you've had longer to study and longer to absorb the information. For my folks that are going through the accelerated programs are harder because they are generally condensing down things that you should take your time learning to prepare you for the real world. So if you are in those fast-paced programs, you are going to want to take at least 3 months to prepare if you don't feel confident. Now, sometimes people are taking the accelerated programs because they already have background in medical, so they can skip all of the medical terminology and anatomy and all those questions type stuff because they already know it. Obviously, they're not going to skip that on the test, but they can skip the learning part because they already know it. It is the coding part that is going to get people. So if you are in a shorter program, I recommend taking the 3 months, unless you have background in medical already, because you are going to need it. When you're preparing, at least when you are preparing, you can take the time to do drills and get the practice exam books. So the practice exam books are like mock exams. This is not the questions that are on the test. People have written me very upset, telling me, Blue, I passed that mock exam book, I passed the study prep guide, and I still failed the test. Why? Because those are meant to give you the motions of the test, not actually the content of the test. Because we don't know what the content of the test is, and you won't know until you get in there and you're taking your exam. So don't rely on those to be a barometer of if you're going to be able to pass or not. This is just going to give you those motions of, okay, it's going to be this many questions and this many questions, and this is the style of the test. So just keep that in mind when you are practicing with those books. They are still good books to practice with because they give you scenarios. And if you have the books that have the answers, it's going to give you the rationale as to how they came up with that answer. And sometimes that does help, because if it's not something that was really reviewed in your program, going over it in a book may help you to better understand. And then, of course, with the rationale, it will explain why. So that is the recommendation there. If you have been in a shorter program, you want to take a little bit longer. But if you feel ready, like within 2 weeks or 6 weeks, then by all means, it is entirely up to you. These are just some of my thoughts on it, because people ask me all the time, I'm going to finish my program, but I don't know how long to but I don't know how long to study for my certification exam. And it's hard for me to respond to people because I don't know how fast they're absorbing the information or how good their teacher was. You know, that does play a huge role in it. When you are talking about educating adults and everybody has a different learning style, and we're not like kids where kids have to be in a classroom and they have all day to think and study, and that is their only job. As adults, we have adult responsibilities and we have families and we have ourselves to take care of. So that on top of everything else, it makes adult learning a challenge, but it's not impossible, especially when you want to do this to change your life. So if you have been in a longer program, that's good, because your time to absorb all this information, while it will go fast, it will give you time to absorb the information. If you still feel like you are not quite sure of yourself, because sometimes people will say, I went through a year-long program and I'm just so scared to take the exam, I just haven't scheduled it yet. You got to schedule it. You have to at least give yourself a deadline, so that way you have an end in sight. And if you are testing and you're like, okay, well, I know I'll have up to 3 months to sit for my exam, then okay, if that's what you want to do, if you want to go the 3 months, that's totally fine. On the outside, 3 months, do not go past that. And the reason that I say don't go past that is because the longer you get out of your program, the longer you have been completed and you've done it, and then the more time and life starts getting in the way, the more you're more likely to forget things, and especially everything that you've learned. So that's why I say on the outside, it should be 3 months. The soonest it could be is like 2 weeks, depending on how fast you finish your program and how soon the testing center has actual dates for you that you can take this test. So, but you have to schedule it and you have to make time for it and you have to do it, because don't let the end be like, okay, I finished it, but now I'm scared. A lot of people write me and say, Blue, I'm terrified. I'm scared to take this exam. Let's look at this and break it down. This is how I do. This is my process of how I break things down. When I start to feel overwhelmed and scared about something, I think to myself, will this bite me? I do. I honestly do. I say, will this bite me? And if I say no, okay, it won't bite me. So it can't physically hurt me. That's number 2. That's why I say, okay, it can't physically hurt me. So since it can't do that, then I'm in a little bit more control. You know, I'm tiny. I'm 4'11" and not much. So, you know, that's the thing. When I think of it like that, okay, this thing can't physically hurt me. It can't bite me. I'm in control because this is something I can use my brain to conquer. And there's times when you're like, okay, well, okay, so it won't bite me and it won't physically hurt me. So now I just have to remember, what if I forget? What if they're asking me questions I don't know about? The thing about tests is that you have been studying this whole time. So you know how to use the book, you know how to look up procedure codes, and you know how to look up diagnosis codes, correct? Correct. So it's not going to be a shocker when you go in there. And this is not like you're somebody off the street and just trying to sit for a certification exam without having gone through any kind of program and be like, yeah, I'm here to take my CCA or my CCS and or my CPC and I want to pass. Well, did you go through a program? No. I have no experience in medical either. It's not like you're saying that, okay? You have been through a program, you have studied, you know, okay? So there you have more of a chance. So you're giving yourself a chance now, but you have to give yourself that chance by scheduling your exam, by getting ready for it, giving yourself that deadline. And as you give yourself a deadline, and even if you want to go the 3 months, fine, go the 3 months. But if you do, you got to make sure that you are consistent with your study times. Because if you're going to give yourself that much time, you're not going to learn anything new, but you better sure get faster with the book. And people say, well, you know, I'm just going to look up, you know, yeah, you can look things up. But the thing is, when I'm telling you guys to get familiar with a book, I mean actually physically going through the book, the index and the tabular section. Now, whether you are using a certain publisher, I prefer, although people have different likes and dislikes about the books, I do prefer Optum 360 coding books. I will leave the link for Optum 360 in the description box below. Yes, I love them. Yes, I'm always talking about them. No, this is not an ad. I like to share the things that I know. I like Optum 360 coding books. They are trustworthy to me. They have always helped me, and I am very familiar with their books. They have so much really good information in them. Lots of color illustrations, notes. In the ICD-10 CM book, it does have coding notes, like coding tips in there, and it's just other like little instructional notes. And while other publishers have some of those things, they don't always have all the things. So get familiar with your appendixes in the books, because there's a lot of really good information in those appendixes. And if you are asked a question, maybe like, oh, okay, well, I can reference an appendix real quick, whether it's like an anatomy table or something, depending on the question. But you have to know where in the book to look, right? So that is one of the helpful things when you are studying for the certification exam, is to physically go through the book. A lot of people will say, well, it's a big old book and I don't want to mess with it. You need it right now. Trust me, when you get out in the real world and you start working at your job, chances are you'll be using an encoder. Not all places use an encoder, but the vast majority of them do. And while you are in the study part for your certification, and while you're sitting for these certification exams, you have to be able to use the book. So just get used to it just for the time that you need it. And then, you know, if you don't want to use the books anymore and you want to use the encoder, that's fine. However, I will disagree and say that even as a coder in the field, even though you have access to an encoder, you are going to look at the book occasionally, because a lot of times when you're going through the encoder, it can take you down a different path and you could still get the wrong code. So sometimes, and you're going to know because the way it looks. So you're going to need that physical book in order to verify your code. But that's another story for another time. But think about this, guys. It's the end of the light. It's the end of the tunnel, right? It's the end of the tunnel with the certification exam. All you have to do is just sit there and just go over everything that you've been taught. And when you sit for that certification exam, you're going to go through each question and you're going to make sure that you're going to keep good pace. Don't sit here and try to clock yourself when you're sitting for your mock certification exams on your own. Don't try to do that, but get through with such efficiency that your first choice is going to be your answer. Everybody says that about themselves. Well, I thought it was going to be this answer, and then I selected another answer and it was wrong. You have to go with your first instinct on any answer that comes right to your mind. Use process of elimination. If you don't know about a particular procedure, if it doesn't seem familiar to you or you weren't really good at it in school, it's okay. The whole exam is not going to be that one question. So if you miss that one question, it's totally fine. You're allowed to miss some questions, right? So you have to give yourself a break on that, and you're still able to pass, even if you do miss just a few. You know what I'm saying? So you want to make sure that you are going through, not being so hard on yourself. You don't have to get 100% in order to pass. You just need to meet the pass rate. And when you do that, trust me, you'll relax a lot more. Now, the whole inner dialogue of I'm terrified, I'm terrified, I'm terrified, you guys need to stop saying that to yourself. I'm terrified of this test. No, I'm excited about taking this test, because this test, once I pass it, right? Once I pass it, is going to lead me to my new career. And if all else fails and you do not pass, it's okay. Just take it again. You know, there is nothing wrong with taking it again. There are several people that are very good coders who had to take their certification more than once. So it's okay if you have to. At the end of the day, it's not going to bite you. It's not going to physically hurt you. But you're going to take a little bit of a bruising on the ego if you get so wrapped up in your head about it. Don't get wrapped up in your head about it, guys. It is literally going to be a review of everything that you've learned. And when you're studying in that time before your certification exam, do not cram. Everything that you have needed to learn, you've learned in your program, right? And if you're stuck, if something didn't make sense to you, you're going to reach out and find a mentor or reach out and find a tutor to help you to understand. Because sometimes when you're in these programs and you don't have like a really hands-on instructor, and then you find a tutor who can sit there and be like, okay, it's this, this, and this, and break it down to you, Sometimes that is the best investment you can give yourself. All right. I'm a tutor myself. I leave my rates in the description box below. Very reasonable. But there's a ton of them on LinkedIn. If you don't want me, that's fine. There's a ton of them on LinkedIn. And I am on LinkedIn as well at Medical Coding with Blue. So if you're interested in following me there, that would be great. Anyway, but I want you guys to know that this test it's exciting. Yes, you might be a little bit nervous, but set yourself up for success. Don't cram. Don't try to memorize all these answers or things that you think. Don't write all over your book. You know, that's always an argument every single time. I'm going to tell y'all why you shouldn't overly write in your book, okay? If you're using a really good book, it's going to have all the answers in it already. That is what these exams are designed for. That's why they tell you to bring your books. You have to have your books in order to sit for the certification exam. The answers are in the book. You just have to learn how to use the book. And you writing all these little notes and everything, everybody asks me all the time, what notes do you write? How do you transfer your notes into your books? I don't write in my books, guys. And I don't even tab my books either. Some people prefer tabs. It just depends on which association you're sitting with, the tab situation. I came up in a time where I don't use tabs. I never use tabs. I don't like tabs. Tabs get in my way. I use the book so much that I'm often able to flip to just the section that I need without having to sit here and flip, because I've been working with the book as long, right? And again, not ever using the tabs. But the associations have different rules about tabbing. AAPC folks love their tabs. So that is fine. And if that is acceptable for them, then that's cool. But AHIMA does have rules. These cannot be handmade tabs. And that is in the candidate handbook for the certification exams. I'm just saying, it's in black and white. Unless the tabs came with the physical book, like with the CPT Professional Edition, they do, by the AMA, they do come with tabs. So you can use those, okay? But you cannot use handmade tabs. I'm just saying, and it's in the rules in the book, okay? But yes, getting familiar with your book is going to help you to know where and how to find things and look things up. Reading your coding guidelines. I will always say that. I will always advocate for that. While you are in your program, you should be reading the entire ICD-10-CM coding guidelines, cover to cover, once per week. And however long your program is, think about that. You're going to be so quick and so fast with reading those. It's going to speed up your reading time, okay? Because a lot of people will freak out when they see the op notes and they say, well, Blue, it's just so much to read. If you've been reading the coding guidelines the entire time you've been in your program and you've been studying, trust me, you're going to get a lot faster with reading from when you first started till when you take your certification exam. You're going to get faster. So that's why I tell you guys, it's a byproduct of reading the coding guidelines. You're going to learn those coding guidelines forwards and backwards, which every good coder should know those guidelines forwards and backwards. If you want to make flashcards, if you want to write notes to yourself, that is totally fine. But again, all the answers are there. Reading the coding guidelines once per week, again, is going to make you faster. So that's the thing that I recommend. And think about that. You're going to know all the rules to doing the coding. Don't memorize the guidelines, but reading them, because the key to adult education is repetition. I have heard that from before, but it's true. And the more that you read them, and even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if you don't feel like you're retaining it, trust me, your brain is going. Your brain is so smart and is so like with it. If you give yourself a chance to utilize your brain and use it at its full potential, which is putting it in front of stimuli, which is these coding guidelines, and you're just reading them, right, once per week. You don't have to read the whole thing in a single day. You can break it up throughout the week, and that is totally fine, and then just keep going. Your brain is going to start to remember, okay, we have this and we've got to read this. Okay, so I remember this. Okay, and I remember this. That's how your brain works. It functions because when you start to do things, you start to develop those habits. And that's what I'm going to say about that. So it is only for your benefit that you do that you read those coding guidelines, and reading them once per week. Trust me, you're going to be a lot further ahead than you think. And it may seem like it's a lot, but it's just temporary. It's just while you are studying for your certification. It's just while you're in school. So, think of it like that. It's not forever. It's just for a little while. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But schedule your certification exams, guys. Take them. Give yourself a chance. Even if you don't feel confident, look for ways to help yourself to better understand things. Again, find a mentor or find a tutor, because it is really for your benefit. Not all medical coding programs are created equally. You got to think about that. So again, if you feel like you're missing out on something or you don't quite understand, reach out. Find somebody to help you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, like this, share this if it helped you, and I will see y'all on the next video. Bye.